I want to take a moment to talk about the brilliance of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. When we think Brandon is a prolific author, I think that's fair to say. He's written what must be like a dozen different series at this point, ranging from YA to middle grade to adult fantasy. And the best book he ever wrote, well, at least in my opinion, his best series is the Stormlight Archive, which is going to be 10 sprawling books that are each around 1,000 pages, and it's absolutely brilliant. But the one that impresses me more than Stormlight, as much as I love Stormlight, is Mistborn. And that's because without changing a single word on the page, it gets better and better and better, and will continue to do so. How is this possible? It's because of the way he foreshadows things, the way things are set up, and let me give an example. Era 2 of Mistborn jumps us 300 years into the future, and we see sprawling, like, railroads, cities, guns. Technology actually progresses in this world, and we see where everything ends up. We see that our characters have been turned into mythological figures. We see their descendants. We see some of them pop up that live due to the various magic systems. And it's absolutely brilliant. And it makes the first book better because it's hope. There are stakes, obviously. It's a Brandon Sanderson book, but it's not world-ending. The world is fundamentally a good place, a hopeful place, and a place a hell of a lot more like Earth. There's no ash falling from the sky. There's no mists that stay during the day and kill people. It's honestly a great place to live for the most part. And that sense of hope at the end, when you go back in the dreary setting of Era 1, just having that hope, knowing where it's going to end up, makes everything just a little bit more bearable. And obviously I loved it before Aloe of Law came out, which is the first book of the second era, but just having that hope makes it better. And that's just the first step, because after Bands of Mourning, he released a novella called Mistborn's Secret History, which follows Kelsier post-mortem, which sounds crazy. We're following a character that's died, and yet through the course of the story, we see him look at the events of Era 1 through his perspective. Some of the questions we had, like who's the Mistborn that's chasing Vin around? We get that answer. What is preservation like? This character who has such a presence in the first book, but we don't know anything about him. Obviously, when I first read Secret History, his personality took me completely by surprise. And that's brilliant. It makes it better. Seeing Kelsier interact with Spook, knowing that at the end, what he feels is finally real. It's not just Ruin still influencing him somehow. That brought tears to my eye. And speaking of tears, getting to see Vin and Elend again. My God, seeing them just ascend up into heaven, or the beyond, as it's called in the Cosmere. I mean, I didn't cry during Era 1 when Elend and Vin died the first time, and I don't know why. It's obviously very sad. I'm obviously very attached to these characters, but just, I think part of it's Brendan's a better writer. I care deeply about, like, seeing Kelsier have to watch Vin and Elend go more than I did when they died the first time, and I think it's a testament. The Traveler's interesting, and it's a semi-canonical story about Hoyd, a character that appears in a lot of Brandon's adult works, going to Yolen and talking about Ati and Laros dying, and just getting to see that. I mean, it's a short story, but I think, honestly, it would have been a brilliant epilogue to Hero of Ages. It's kind of a shame that they didn't do that in the leather bound edition. And then finally, it's gonna get even better, right? Because we got a little bit of ruin, and we got a fair amount of preservation and secret history, but in the Dragonsteel books, the prequel to the entire Cosmere, we're gonna get Ati and Laros, who are preservation and ruin. And that is unbelievably exciting, because in Stormlight Archive, Ati is described as a kind man who obviously at some point took up the Shard of Ruin, and it slowly corrupted him. And to see Ati before he has fallen and is a good person, I think is going to be heartbreaking. Because we're going to go back and read Arrow 1 without anything having changed from those words. It's not like Stephen King's Dark Tower, where he went back and rewrote everything to make it fit. It's going to be Mistborn through and through. The same Mistborn we've always read. And yet, we're going to see Ati, and we're not going to be able to think of him as this, like, monster. This Sauron character, the Dark One, because he's not. He's a human, and not only is he a human, he's a good human. And he's been twisted. And I just think that's brilliant.